wonder if I should put my mic up here.
It doesn't matter. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manoj Agarwal, and today we'll be talking with two special guests. One, Melissa, you have met her. She was on the podcast about a few weeks ago, and another guest, Tanmay Bakshi. He's a wonder kid, a world famous 17-year-old author, TEDx speaker. I'll go over his biography. He has done too much for me to just remember.
He's going to be your boss one day. Like maybe in like 30 minutes, like all of our bosses in 30 minutes, maybe 15.
Yeah, no, I'll love that. I bet I will get to learn a few things.
Thank you.
All right, so here it is. So Tanmay Bakshi is 17-year-old Canadian author, AI and machine learning systems architect, TED and keynote speaker, Google developer expert for machine learning, and IBM Champion for cloud. He has addressed over 200,000 executives, developers, and audiences worldwide at conferences, universities, schools, financial institutions, and international companies. The United Nations, NASSCOM, Linux Foundation, Apple, SAP, IBM, KPMG, Microsoft, Walmart. These are just a few organizations he has keynoted for. Tanmay is a media personality, having been featured in the Toronto Star, on the front page of the Vancouver Sun, pictured on stage doing what he loves to do, sharing his knowledge with the world in Forbes and CNBC, as well as in Bloomberg Businessweek as a young entrepreneur, in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, just to name a few. Tanmay is the recipient of the Life Mentor Award by Honorary Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba, Twilio Doer Award, Knowledge Ambassador Award, and Global Goodwill Ambassador at LinkedIn. Tanmay has developed machine learning powered systems such as Heart ID, a deep neural network based electrocardiogram based identification system, which won HPC Wire's Reader's Choice Award for best use of high performance data analytics and artificial intelligence. He's also worked on lower level software like an ultra low latency call tracer utility that can scale to trillions of function calls and is powered by LLVM for the IBM DB2 code base. Awesome. I understood about 80% of it.
All I know is that Tanmay's awesome. I told you he's going to be our boss in like 15 minutes. I don't know. It may have reduced down to like 5, where he's like, I'm taking over the world. Sit down, hold on, and here we go.
Yeah. So as I said, I know a thing or two about technology, but what I just read, I think I got about 80% of it. So why don't we start with you, Tanmay, and Melissa? Melissa, I introduced a few weeks ago. Melissa is the chief penguin at IBM, so she made up her own title, which is an accomplishment in itself at IBM, because I have worked with IBM. They are very, very strict with these things. So if she gets to pick her own title, she's really important at IBM. So, Melissa,
tell you, Manoj, I went through, and Tanmay, I did my, we have these, everybody has annual performance reviews that they go through when you work in any company to see, what are your goals? How did you do according to your goals? And today I submitted my achievements according to my goals. And as I was looking at the system, it said right there, Chief Penguin. And I had to sit back a little bit, and I didn't want to like break any rules, but I wanted to take a screenshot of like the system that said Chief Penguin in like this, formal IBM process. And I don't know, I was tickled. I've been kind of on a little bit of a cloud ever since that, and also an interview that I did today where they asked me about my job title.
Yeah. No, both of these people are rock stars in their own right. So let's start the conversation. So I'll get to the big things that Melissa has been doing, but Tanmay, let's start with you.
Sure.
How do you even begin to understand things like AI at the age that you did? And I believe you got professionally hired by IBM or somebody at age 15. Tell us about that story.
Sure. I mean, I'd love to dive deeper into it. I mean, really, I think it all starts with how I got into technology. I think that is actually important to talk about, because that really is the sort of base for all of this, and sort of why I work with technology today. And really, it sort of stems back to when I was like 5 years old, which is now like 12 years ago. And so, back when I was 5, I mean, as you can imagine, as a 5-year-old, there's not really much to do all day. and so
well,
really,
I have younger sons. They are on YouTube all day long.
Meanwhile, I was like putting my hair in buns and ribbons and yeah.
I mean, of course, I did have a lot of toys to play with, but but the thing is that, even though I had lots of things to do, the thing that really fascinated me most was honestly just the computer. Because I mean, if you think about it, I was able to just do infinitely more with a computer. And even back at 5, just like pressing buttons and seeing colors change on screen or whatever, right? These were things that really, to me, were infinitely more exciting than just playing with any of the other toys that I had, because there's just so much more that you can do with it, right? You can interact with it in so many other ways. And what was really interesting was that my dad, he actually saw that sort of like curiosity that I had for technology, and that I loved working with computers. And he used to work as a computer programmer with sort of like older like database languages and stuff, things like Fox Pro and batch programming and these sorts of things. And so he like introduced me to really simple concepts, not even really with the intention of like getting me into computing and programming, just to sort of
And then now Tanmay is his dad's boss, by the way. He's like, Dad, I need you to handle this important, matter of business.
He's your manager now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, all I can say is that, ever since then, there's every question that he answered would only open up more questions. And I mean, that's sort of what led to me.
I think I need to get some parenting lessons from your dad for sure.
Right? Either that, or I don't know. Maybe you don't want your 5-year-old to be your boss yet, or I don't know how old your kids are.
They're already my bosses. I've given up. That is amazing. So then, from changing colors and things like that. By the way, I can relate to that. I was an extreme introvert, and I really liked computers because I didn't, have to talk to people, and machines used to obey the orders, and that was lovely. So how did you go from changing colors to AI? How did that happen?
It's definitely a really fun story, I gotta say. I mean, initially, as I was working with technology, like I was learning a bunch of new things. I remember quite literally the day that Apple had announced the new Swift language at WWDC in like, I think it was 2014. That was the day that I decided that's my favorite programming language, and it still is to this day. I sort of started working with more complex technology. But even though I was doing that, there was always this thing in the back of my mind that technology was almost getting a bit boring for me, in the sense that, I was able to do more with it, but it wasn't the kind of stuff that I wanted to do, because computers are great and all, but all you can do is have them obey your rules, like as you mentioned, right? What I wanted to be able to do was essentially have, a computer that could almost make decisions like a human, right? It just annoyed me that wasn't possible, right? Being able to like understand language and not just have if statements, right? These sorts of things really annoyed me. But actually, when I was around 11 years old, so this was back in like 2015, I had found a documentary on Watson, and how Watson played the Jeopardy game show, and won Jeopardy, actually. And that just immediately fascinated me, right? That was like the moment where I realized that, hey, it is possible to do these sorts of things with computers. And the moment where I said, I want to be able to do that myself. And so I was fascinated by Watson. And I mean, as of course, IBM had taken sort of like the whole deep QA system that played Jeopardy and sort of split it up into like smaller, more digestible components. And they have like the APIs in the cloud now, which have since evolved a lot. But at first it was, the sort of core components of deep QA. And so I was like, hey, I can use these APIs to do some really fun stuff. So like I made this application to scrape the Gmail FAQ and allow you to ask questions against Watson to figure out how to do things on Gmail, or like a very rudimentary system that could take a movie title and predict its rating on like, on like IMDb. And so
I told you he's going to be our boss, and like, like the clock is ticking now. It's happening.
Well, it was a fun application, I gotta say, and what was actually fun about that is then I created YouTube tutorials on those apps, because I was like, you know what, if I can work with the technology, then why not let others do it too? Especially because I felt like there was a lack of like documentation and other sort of people showing you how to use it. So I was like, how about I create this sort of content? And I started working on that. And as a matter of fact, a couple of IBMers had actually seen some of the YouTube videos I uploaded. And things actually started to change when, a long time ago, today we have like the Watson Discovery Service. A long time ago, that was actually two different services: the Retrieve and Rank and the Document Conversion Services. And back then, document conversion wasn't experimental, so it wasn't even in beta yet. And there was a bug in the API that I had reported to Stack Overflow. Wondering, did I do something wrong here? Is this a bug in the Watson API? So a couple of IBMers had actually found that after I tweeted about it, which led them, to my YouTube channel and the work that I do. And most notably, two of them, James Archieri and Timothy Duncan, had then, reached out to me and were like, how can we help? And so now they're my mentors, and I've been working with them for some time. And then I got to do my first major keynote at IBM Interconnect, and I've sort of just been working with AI and machine learning and sort of scaling it up from there. But really, though, to get back to your original point about like how exactly I learn about all different technology, I think what's important is that a lot of people, when they learn about technology, they have some sort of motive behind why they're doing it. Whether it is I want to get a job in technology or whatever that may be, right? But back when I was 5, I didn't really know people were paid to code.
Meanwhile, I've got buns in my hair.
And so I didn't have that that sort of bias that I want to learn technology so I can earn money or do
get a good job or manage your career. It's really I think what I hear most when I listen to Tanmay is just the creativity of like the human imagination, and kind of looking at the discovery of how things intersect together and creating and making and doing and exploring just out of like whatever is in his mind versus like what already exists. And I think that's one of the big things that I'm really excited about when it comes to our event tomorrow. The Human Code is really about like not just tapping into Tanmay's mind and thinking about how has he brought human creativity to life, or augmented human creativity, not replacing human creativity, but how can we inspire the rest of the Tanmays in the world that we haven't discovered yet,
that's right,
or haven't realized that there is all this amazing potential that could be put into learning to code, or learning about AI, or discovering again each individual's potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's I think about finding your passion. And sad to say, but most of the people they grow up and then they go into careers, but they never find their true passion. And to be able to find
my passion until like 5 years ago.
And,
truth be told, I'm 45. I found my passion okay, my hand has to go over here. I'm putting my hand up. 5 years ago. And, I knew that there was something that was missing in my life. I knew that I needed to tap into some kind of creativity, but in a sense, I was also scared of tapping into my creativity because I had in my mind that I wasn't creative enough, or I wasn't artistic enough, or I wasn't technical enough.
Actually, sorry to interrupt there, but you mentioned on like a really interesting point that I think is something that's really important to sort of nail through, and that is that one of the key points that I make a lot of the time, and this had started initially like I think back in 2016. So I had like a really fun opportunity. I got to speak at an Apple event for their distinguished educators in the UK, and one of the key messages that I was trying to get across was that fundamentally kids kind of have an advantage when they're learning about anything, especially technology, but really anything. And that is that they don't come with these sort of preconceived notions of like, technology is really hard and it's like just for geniuses and I got to be a great mathematician to code, right? And because they don't come with that bias,
it's so true. There is such this misconception around this concept of being technical, or I mean, I think it's almost like across every industry, there's this like misconception, but especially in tech around, what does it mean to code? What is it, computer? I mean, even just having computer and science, it sounds hard. When really it's about creativity and
I think
another language.
There are multiple factors here. By the way, before we move forward, Tanmay, I will debate you all day long about your favorite language, Swift, and and documentation is not a favorite thing for engineers to do. So let's just live with that. That being said, I think you're absolutely right. People are afraid of computers, and I think it may be just because the industry itself is so new. I mean, look at automobile industry. It's about 100 200 120 years old. Construction industry maybe 200 years old, like the modern construction industry. IT industry, I mean, let's face it, like the internet actually started around the 90s, so we are barely like 3 decades old. So people are not don't find it accessible enough. So I think that is what you're pointing out, Melissa and Tanmay, that
Well, I think part of it that I'm pointing out is 48% of the world has access to the internet. 48%. So we're talking about half the population that lacks access to the internet. And then even if you think about 48% having access to the internet, that assumes it's affordable. And even if you have access, you may not be able to afford it. And then if you kind of then think about, do you have access to the internet? Is it affordable? Is your device affordable? And then do you have access to computer science education in the classroom? And if not, do you know where to go? If you think about all of the pathways that you have to get educated, I think there are natural learners like Tanmay who have had access to a device, but what if you have never had access to a device? The internet's not affordable. You don't, maybe your parents were not an engineer or even understand this computer science thing to recognize that, wow, my son, my daughter, my child has this natural passion or this natural interest. And so I think a lot of this is, not just about, is it accessible? Is it interesting? It's a lot of, unfortunately, about are you a have or are you a have not? And I'm not meaning that in a bad way. I'm just saying that I think we are in a significant, challenge, and that's why I think many of the UN Sustainable Development Goals exist today, is to look at how can we empower underserved or underrepresented communities, with affordable access and with the skills, especially if you don't have a role model or a parent who might recognize that, hey, wait a second, my kid's got this secret sauce, and
that's a very good point. Tanmay, tell us about that. Like, do you think if your dad didn't have the insight or didn't notice your talent or interest, or maybe let's just talk about he did not have the background in engineering or software, how do you think that could have affected your life journey?
So I think that touches on a couple interesting points, and as a matter of fact, sort of the discussion we're having really does touch on two things that I think are important to mention. And one of them is that I think fundamentally it's really important that, I mean, I already mentioned how, you know, the youth do have the sort of advantage of not coming to different fields with that sort of closed mindset. They're really open to doing things. But another thing to think about is that it's really the responsibility of the education system that we have to at least, I mean, of course, it's impossible to make everybody an expert in everything, but to be able to, and of course, not everyone's passionate about everything too, but at least to be able to introduce kids and the youth to enough fields in enough depth to help them figure out what it is that they're passionate about, I think is really important. And one of the issues that we're seeing today, I think, is that, you know, society as a whole is starting to progress so much faster than it did just literally a couple of years ago, that the education system's having a really hard time keeping up with that. And the issue with that is that, you know, fundamentally education is meant to prepare people for a future that doesn't exist yet. So if we're not preparing them for
it's hard work, right? Yeah.
If we're not preparing them for today, we can't expect them to be prepared for the future, right? And so getting to, you know, the point about, you know, what would happen if my dad wasn't like an engineer, I mean, it's hard to say because he was, I feel like I probably still would have found out that was my passion. I think the timelines may have been delayed a little bit. Like maybe I would have gone into a slightly different area of computer science. Maybe I would have, you know, learned something else instead of, you know, AI, machine learning. Things might have been delayed a little bit, but I feel like I still would have figured out that was my passion because computers still interested me at that age, right? So it would have taken more time, but I probably would have still done it because that was just something that I felt I was inherently passionate about. Then again, I got to say that I'm biased because, you know, today I can't.
You also had access to the internet. You also had access to a device. And I often meet, you know, I did a talk about 2 or 3 weeks ago with an underprivileged school in Sri Lanka. And there were some kids who joined from Sri Lanka, some kids who joined from Pakistan. And the only access that they have had in the past to, you know, tech skills, if you will, was, you know, simple kind of word processing activities. And we introduced them to coding for the first time. Wow. And the kind of funder of the school was like, we have 10 computers. This is the only place they have access. The kids have they didn't even know what computer science was. No idea, never heard of it, never knew what it was. And I'll tell you, it's this really inspiring, empowering thing to think about, you know, how do we as technologists empower young people who might not have that access at home, because we all know that not everybody has a device at home, you know? And so if you're 5 and you've got access to a device, you can play around, you can look around, you can figure out what's going on. But if you never have access until you're, you know, 15, 16, 20, you know, how do you know that it's your passion? Yeah. You know, how do you know that it's for you?
Actually, to sort of expand upon your point about having access, I feel like sort of this actually does tie back into the same issue of we are simply moving things too quickly. Because if you think about it, any other animal, they don't really change their environment as much as we have as humans, right? We do not live in the same world that we used to live in, or at least we've evolved to be special to live in, right? We've completely changed the environment that we operate within. And I feel like the issue with that is we still have all of these, you know, subconscious ways of thinking that are really good in the wild, right? Where we used to live hundreds of thousands of years ago, but don't work in a modern society, right? Like hundreds of thousands of years ago, the world was a zero-sum game, right? If you had more, others had less. That was how it kind of worked. With humans, it was a little bit skewed because we lived via collaboration, but still, right? It kind of was. But if you look at the world today, you know, giving other people more things generally pushes humanity forward, right? And the thing is, a lot of people, unfortunately, don't necessarily see it that way, just because of the fact that, you know, we've evolved to think a certain way. That is something that we sort of have to fix. And the thing is, you know, we don't have enough time to evolve to start thinking that way because we're simply moving society too fast for us to evolve that quickly.
That's an interesting point. Let me ask you this, because I have some theories about this. You know, as humans, we think we are some sort of a special species, even though we are one of the millions. And we think that, oh, we are changing the environment, but we forget that the environment is us and we are environment. So, whatever we are doing is basically just a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
You have had an amazing life so far, where you got to learn things which people do not get to learn. And you got to experience life from a very different angle, speaking on stages, talking to executives, looking at humanity from a different point of view. How has your worldview changed about yourself and technology and other people who are, other young people around you at your age, or, people who are looking towards their future? And what kind of world are we living in? What is your take on that?
So, I mean, that's a very broad question to be able to answer, but
it's the answer of life.
Yeah. 42, right?
well, you see, yeah. Apart from 42, the thing is that, I mean, first of all, to sort of and to touch upon a point that you mentioned in the beginning, a lot of people think that humans are like this special species, and we're different in a way from other animals. I completely agree with you in the sense that we're not. I do believe that we are just one of the many animals that exist. We do have some unique capabilities, right? And those unique capabilities are really interesting. One of the ones that really interests me most is our linguistic capability, right? Because no other animal can communicate in such a free form and expressive manner, right? Like one of my favorite examples, and this is a classic from like the 1950s, is Noam Chomsky's sentence, colorless green ideas sleep furiously, right? I mean, it makes no sense, but it follows all of our grammar rules, right? You can parse it into a syntax tree. Computers can do that, and even as a human, right, you can start to understand it. Like Stanford held a contest where they had a bunch of their students actually try and find meaning in that sentence, and they were able to do a pretty good job of it, right? So we can take all kinds of things and we can just find meaning in them through language. So language is definitely interesting. So we do have a lot of unique capabilities, but there's nothing fundamentally about us that is really all that different. We're still just animals at the end of the day. And the thing is that we've almost sort of engineered ourselves into a corner where, we subconsciously think differently than it is optimal for us to behave, in the world, right? And one of my favorite examples is just the fact that, machine learning, for example, why do so many people misunderstand it? Why do so many people think that AI is real human intelligence? It's because, when you look at a computer generating natural language or doing whatever it does, with AI, your mind, subconsciously at least, only has the single reference to go against that, hey, if something is generating language, it's a human. And that's been engraved in your mind for literally hundreds of thousands of years. And so when you look at a computer doing the same thing, your mind is like, that's gotta be a human. And then when, leaders in the field and business people and celebrities and so on and so forth call it artificial intelligence, and sort of we drive home that narrative, even just through the wording of the technology, that further propagates those misconceptions. So I feel like in general, some of the things that we need to do are, I mean, as I've mentioned, being able to make the education system more effective today, I think is fundamental to everything else. Yeah. Because unless we can provide education that is accessible to everybody, I mean, as Melissa said, if somebody can access the internet, we can't really expect them to be, I guess, what would the word be, productive in like modern society. And the reason for that is because the internet is powering pretty much everything we do today, right? Like the internet has made it so that somebody can discover something brand new, no matter who they are, in some remote area of some part of the world, and someone on the opposite corner of the globe can figure that out instantly, right? And that has changed the paradigm of how we develop and how we research so much that if we're not giving people access to the resources they need to access the internet, of course, and then from there giving them the quality education, which is being able to nurture that creativity, that imagination that they have, I think, we've sort of, again, engineered ourselves into a corner where we can't really progress until we solve that problem. And just to sort of add to that further, we see all these sort of next generation technologies like, artificial intelligence, machine learning, that are sort of automating at such a large scale where, in the future, it's not like AI is going to replace all our jobs. I'm extremely confident that we're going to have more jobs in the future thanks to AI than it will replace. But if you think about it, those new jobs are fundamentally going to be ones that are rooted in human creativity. They're going to be jobs that they're not going to be jobs that are just the infrastructure.
They require problem solving. They require
Yeah.
critical thinking. They require creativity and innovation, persuasion. But I think this is part of like looking at what are the skills necessary to prepare for the future of work. And part of that is no matter who you are, what you are, where you are, despite the, statistics around who's connected, who's not connected, digital skills are necessary. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to be an engineer. Not everybody needs to be an engineer. Not everybody should be an engineer. But, it's everyone needs to have some level of how do I keep myself safe online? How do I have the right emotional intelligence? How do I keep myself secure online? How do I respond to, challenges that might come up when I'm online? How do I apply for jobs? How do I apply for e-government services? How do I do the things that I need to do to live my daily life? But I think on top of that, it's also those habitudes, which is something I learned recently. Habits and attitudes kind of combine together. So instead of saying like professional skills or, personal development skills, those things that really round you out around, how are you thinking critically and how are you solving problems and how are you integrating creativity, into whatever it is that you're doing. You're creating, you're making, you're doing, you're innovating. Not just doing mundane tasks that don't require your brain to go through, okay, if this happens, then I need to do that. And if this problem comes up, then I need to do this thing.
I think we are living in a you're absolutely right, both of you. And I think to summarize, I think we are sort of living in a very critical turning point in humanity's sort of existence, because digitization was already on the rise, but the last 9 months have just sort of compressed next 20 years into 9 months. And what I always think about is, our educational system was sort of built to serve the industrial revolution or the industrial society that we have built, because we needed engineers, we needed accountants, we needed all these people, because when machines were invented, our hands and legs were free to do whatever we wanted. But now with AI, I think our minds will be free to do whatever we want, right? So, and then the other thing is when humans invented fire, or they invented wheel, or these big inventions, they turned the history, they turned the trajectory of humanity. But I think in 2020, so many cutting edge technologies are coming together simultaneously. We talk about AI, we talk about cloud computing, we talk about quantum computing, we talk about CRISPR, we talk about blockchain.
I need a clone. If someone could, I don't know if the world needs another me, but I would like one. So Tanmay, when you figure that out, give me a call.
Soon.
They are 3D printing organs right now, where you can actually go and get your lung replaced and get a 3D printed lung right now. So I'm not. I don't think it will be, something imagining crazy to say, okay, in 10 years, maybe there is a way to clone yourself. I don't know. But to come back to this point that we are going so fast in this technological advancement. So Melissa, you are absolutely right. The work of tomorrow, the lives of tomorrow will be controlled by technology. So everybody doesn't need to be Olympic winner, but we need to know how to swim. Everybody doesn't need to be a race car driver, but we need to know how to drive. So you're absolutely right that we don't all need to code, but maybe we just need to get familiar with the technology.
Right. I think it's important to be exposed so that it is kind of demystified in a way, and it's accessible to realize, oh, okay, this is what it means. And I think by demystifying it, it also opens up people who might not normally have thought about, hey, this is for me.
Yeah, exactly. So this brings us to the event that we are hosting.
Yes, I've been waiting for that. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get to the event. My gosh.
We were, forming the foundation, the context. Now,
I get it now.
So what are we doing to change this in the world? What, you are so passionate. I mean, let me just say this for Melissa. We got working on this project, maybe December 20th. Christmas was in the middle, New Year's was in the middle, and Melissa was like nonstop, 24/7. Like, oh, I got this celebrity, I got this celebrity. I'm like, what's going on? It's hard to catch up to you. So you are just.
I know, I'm like an
amazing.
animal. I think it's like my strength and my weakness, I think when I get my mind set on something and when I'm passionate about something, I don't know how to turn it off, when I'm awake, and I'm one of those people where when I'm awake, I'm like full on awake. When I'm asleep, when my head hits the pillow, I sleep like that's just how I am. I mean, I have two speeds. It's stop and it's go like 3,000 miles an hour. But, for me, there are a certain number of things I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about access to digital skills education, access to the internet, empowering underserved and underrepresented communities, and people using technology to make meaningful use of the internet, whether that's getting a good job, being a technology entrepreneur. Those are just the things that, I don't know, wake me up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to go and do this. And there's been this idea that I've had in my mind for a while, and it's been really focused around, it started out with code poems. Mm-hmm. And I was running this hackathon with UNESCO back in March around, fighting back against COVID-19, and as I was thinking about things, I stumbled upon this woman who was doing these trainings around writing code poems and teaching people to code based on poetry. And I just thought there was something to it. And, IBM has a strong partnership now, which I'll take credit for that, with code.org. And, I saw so many of the amazing things that code.org has been doing to demystify computer science and, combine, music and dance, in more of like a platform, so you move some blocks around and then the robot dances, which we're going to check out with Terrence, by the way, tomorrow, which will be interesting.
So tell us a little bit about Terrence, tell us about,
tomorrow's event is called The Human Code, and it's all about bringing the arts and computer science together. So the intersection of technology and music, dance, poetry, storytelling, and really kind of thinking about software source code as cultural heritage. I took part in 2018 in this UNESCO initiative called the Paris Call. And 100 of us or so locked ourselves in a room at UNESCO for a week. And we drafted this declaration called the Paris Call. And it was all about this declaration that, we should really see code as cultural heritage, like music, like dance, like language, like food, like whatever else you can define as cultural heritage. And so this event is really about bringing those things together, and it has we have a few different goals. It's about, encouraging and empowering, underserved and underrepresented communities to explore their place in tech, but redefining the narrative around that tech is really about human creativity. And I think a lot of people see a programmer as different than an artist or different than a poet, or a singer. And, I really had this vision of pulling these things together, and I kind of started working on it. You and I met and we talked about like spinning up something, and I'm like, hey, I've got this thing I want to do. And it was really beautiful how life is serendipitous, and things just kind of happen sometimes without you realizing what's going to happen. It was like my meeting with Tanmay, for example, where he'd reached out about, meeting me, being on his podcast, us having a chat. And then we started talking about the human code, and I started realizing, that he's doing this amazing thing that I was looking for, but he didn't know I was looking for it. I didn't know that happened. And I think that's how a lot of these activities that we're planning for the Human Code came about. It was really partly like just having this vision of wanting to pull it together, and then just realizing like, wow, there's all these code poets out there. There's Tanmay, who's doing this amazing thing with, lyrics and machine learning. And I have this girlfriend who is a master storyteller at Microsoft, and she's written this book called Brand Storytelling. And she's got this formula for how do you tell emotionally impactful and relevant stories. And I thought, what if we put all of this stuff together, with a Bollywood dancer, Terrence Lewis, dancing and coding, and what if we bring his whole team with him and really think about the intersection of poetry and execute some code poems and sing. And so that's the Human Code, if you will.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, the passion is just sort of overflowing as you're describing. So I'm so looking forward to it. And being in the tech world for such a long time, I have never seen anything done so far. I mean, I've attended conferences. I've
boom.
been around. Yeah.
Wait, so, make sure my hand's showing. Okay, wait. Boom.
Yeah. So this is amazing. But do also tell us, your amazing journey. Like, when we started, like we had, when we discussed, I said, okay, let's get Terrence into this. And then every day almost you're like, oh, I got Zach.
Oh, we got some amazing collaborators. So IEEE, the largest engineering organization on the planet, 400,000 members worldwide. We're also collaborating with Digital Engagement Foundation, which has 700 centers across India. Its CEO, Osama, is amazing. We're going to broadcast it at all 700 centers. Caribbean Girls Hack, which is a wonderful organization that works in collaboration with UN Equals, which is essentially part of the International Telecommunication Union, which is the IT branch of the UN, and their gender inclusion team. We've got Save Foundation, which does a lot of amazing work across India in the nonprofit sector. And, it's just so many different really interesting individuals. I'm really, really excited that we also have Ty Roberts from Tidal. I don't know if, everyone is familiar with Tidal, but let me tell you, this is Jay-Z's streaming platform, like the Jay-Z.
Nice.
We're talking about like Beyonce and Jay-Z. So I'm pretty excited. I can't say that Beyonce is going to come and chill with us. I tried to reach out.
Maybe next time.
Next time she's going to be banging down my door like, Melissa, I need to be part of this event. And then I'm going to introduce her to her boss, Tanmay. Like, have you met your boss yet? If he's not your boss yet, he's going to be in like 5 minutes.
Get an assessment done on your music, and he will give you all the wavelengths and all the analysis on that. And if it matches his criteria, maybe then we can consider.
Exactly.
And then and you had an interview today with a very prominent media outlet. So tell us about that.
I did. I had the same background, by the way. So my palm tree was rocking. My dog, luckily, is really cooperated, and she didn't get back in the middle of everything. But yeah, I had an amazing interview today with Cheddar, which is I think, for lack of better words, the CNBC for millennials. They have, as of like 2017, like 150 million viewers. I don't know what the number is now, so I don't know if it's higher or lower or whatever it is, but it was really exciting because before I did my interview, I could see what was happening in the show. And before me was the chief marketing officer of GM, so like General Motors. And I was like, wow, I'm going after the CMO of, of GM. And they were talking about their, a logo shift or something like that in CES. And the guy who was interviewing her was on the, floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And so I was like, wow, this is like big time. I'm sitting there waiting for my turn. And they, the gal who interviewed me, she said, so the first thing I want to know, we've been all talking about this. This is very newsworthy. Explain to us this Chief Penguin thing.
Yeah. I saw that. That was amazing.
So I had a chance to talk about creating my own job title, and we've talked about the Chief Penguin thing. So that was pretty cool. We talked about the event and really about the importance of inspiring women and girls, people of color, and really diverse and inclusive audiences and new people to come into tech and bring that creativity. And we talked about some of the innovations that are happening, thanks to Tanmay's expertise. I was really excited. I hope I represented Tanmay's work well. We'll
also looking forward
we'll see
to
if I get demoted or not.
Yeah, you inspired two people of color here for sure.
Awesome.
So Tanmay, what are you going to do? I'm so looking forward to this. But do tell us, what are you going to do? How are you going to educate us and entertain us? I'm so looking forward to it.
So I think a couple of things. Was that for me or was that for Tanmay?
No, Tanmay. Yeah, I mean, Tanmay, like, do you have something you can share right now? Or is it all a secret? Like, like Steve Jobs.
Not a secret.
Oh. No, everything is confident. No. No. I mean, I'd love to share some insight into what we're going to get to take a look at tomorrow. Just to sort of give you an idea. For a long time, I'd say past 6 months or so, I have been working on deep learning based systems, and essentially the goal of these systems are: can we augment songwriters to help them write music more effectively? And so the goals here are not to replace songwriters at all, but to make it so that someone, even like me as a developer who has no experience doing songwriting and no experience with this kind of art, can I at least begin to be able to write songs, right? Even if they're not the best songs in the world, can I, as just a developer, write songs? And can experienced musicians and beginning songwriters actually use that as a tool to sort of co-write with them, to be able to eliminate writer's block, to be able to have this sort of infinite source of inspiration? That's the idea of the system. And really the goal of it is to show how these systems, the exact same ones pretty much, or at least backed by the same ones that people are saying, we're going to replace songwriters and replace even developers and replace all sorts of folks. Can these systems can I prove that they're really useful for augmenting human creative professionals? And so I have, over the past couple of days, with Melissa's help and a couple of the folks on actually multiple different teams. There's my friend James Haybear, who's helping us out with production, as well as Elena Coates, who's a really talented singer, also on the team of producing the human code, as well as Claudia Heuser, who is a really famous country musician. Working with all these different really talented and honestly really hardworking people, to, in the short span of just a couple of days, put together some demonstrations of this neural network that I built. Generate
and they're gonna sing, and I'm super excited about that. I can't wait to hear these songs being sung.
That's amazing.
I've already gotten to listen to them, and all I'm gonna say is they're really.
I can't wait. I've seen a teaser video, so I haven't even seen it. And I'm purposely not going to see it. I want to feel it at the event for the first time. And, I think sometimes, when you're running an event like this, I think a lot of people like to control every aspect of the event, and make sure that everything is, running according to plan, which I think is important. But I think it's also important as an event producer, as an event organizer, to feel like you're also part of the audience and inspire and encourage, your speakers to have control over their sessions and their own magic. And so I actually don't know.
Same here. I don't want to know, I just want to know a little bit about what's happening, and then just be surprised. I'm so looking forward to this. So when is this happening? Where can people go to register? Please share some more details.
Yeah, so I think if Manoj, you could put the link up on the screen, I think that would be awesome. So I'm gonna try to point right. I gotta.
Other way. I
know it's. There we go.
Yeah. We'll add the comments. We'll add the comments in these videos.
Yeah, so that's where you can go to register. Please register. Please join us. It's happening really in the next how many hours?
Less than what? Maybe 12 hours?
Yeah. So it's almost here. I'm going to have to sleep well tonight, especially since I have a keynote speech before it in Sri Lanka. Well, I'm not flying to Sri Lanka. I'm going to virtually join.
Oh, you have another event going on.
I
Wow.
have 4 events tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. I don't know how you do it.
I don't either. I'm going to need a vacation, but please, register, please join us. Again, it's really about the intersection of technology and the arts. We have an amazing group of speakers and technologists. If you've never coded before, it doesn't matter. If you think you're not technical enough, it doesn't matter. If you think you're not creative enough, it doesn't matter. If you think you're not artistic enough, it also, follow my lead, doesn't matter. Show up. You're going to be at your home anyway. And nobody's going to watch when you dance to Terrence Lewis's music. Well, unless your mom or your dad or your partner or your kids are dancing with you, then maybe they might watch.
So one more thing I want to add is, this is an event unlike any other. So a lot of people have been asking, hey, will you make the recordings available? Yes, we will make the recordings available, but the experience you will have in the live event is going to be totally different. So I will highly recommend that you join live, and then obviously you can watch the videos later. But bring everyone, people who I have been asking. All my friends and family and their kids and everything. So they've been joining.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's like a fun event, and even technology sort of is the theme, but there's going to be so much other fun stuff happening that it's going to feel like just like a school fair. I think.
I like that, like a school fair.
Yeah.
You know what? When I was a kid, I played this game. So while Tanmay was like, while he was coding and changing the world and like taking over the universe, you know what my game was?
What?
I had a carnival, and I created my own games, and I sold tickets to the carnival. And all right, my grandfather's not alive anymore, but I stole my grandfather's stuff, and I gave away my grandfather's stuff from his garage as gifts. But my grandfather, it's okay, because my grandfather came to the carnival and he would get his own gifts from his garage. But my grandfather was old, so he didn't recognize they were from his own garage. So I was a bit of a businesswoman. In my young age, and I was.
There you go. Tanmays of the world need Melissas of the world, so that you guys can put together events like this.
There is no I in team, and we're better together than we are apart.
Tanmay, what are your? We are almost an hour into this. What are your emotions? What are your feelings about what is your message about the event for tomorrow?
I mean, all I can say is this event really, I guess, personifies a lot of the ways that I've felt about technology for a really long time, all the way from, how technology really is more of an art than it is a science, to even like the specific messages, like, for example, what I'm going to be showing off tomorrow around deep neural networks to write lyrics. I think from start to finish, it's all about really representing technology in the right light, which I think not a lot of, I haven't seen anybody do it, in the way that we're going to be doing it tomorrow. So I'm really
watch out now.
Yeah,
that's
from Melissa's head, which way she was doing her hair when she was 5. So I
was doing carnival too.
There you go.
I didn't mention I was doing carnival, but I swear.
There you go. You were
making money moves.
Yeah, you were getting trained professionally, just like Tanmay, but in a different field.
Yeah, I was getting prepared to be, running a carnival.
Yeah, that's great. So guys, please, everybody watching, come show up, join us live, invite your friends and family. It's going to be fun, and you're going to take away a lot of information, a lot of entertainment. I think you'll be better off just attending this event. So please do attend.
It's free,
it's absolutely free. That's another thing. Yeah, absolutely free. And not only that, I think, Melissa, attendees will also get to register on IBM's platform to learn more stuff, right?
Yeah. We're going to walk through an enterprise computing platform that enables young people or anyone of any age to learn new skills. You can earn badges. You can actually win prizes. There is $1,000 that you can win in terms of a scholarship. We're giving away 45 $500 gift cards. People are obviously not traveling right now, but one of the things you can also win from the system, as long as you go through the coding challenges, it takes some time. You have to figure it out, and you got to learn a little bit. But it's possible. And we have a lot of students who are taking part in it. But there is also a trip to the US to come and meet IBM executives. But again, once it's, safe and appropriate to travel. Again, we have a lot of competitions. We're going to run another competition in collaboration with a company called Goodwall, where students will have an opportunity to share their coding stories. So we're going to call it the Human Code. It's going to launch on the 18th of January, if I'm not mistaken. And we're giving away a $500 prize for, I should say Goodwall is giving away a $500 prize for first place. Second place is $300, and third place is $100. So
I didn't even know about all this. So
no, I didn't tell anybody because I haven't posted my blog yet. Tanmay knows my history with blogs.
Oh wow, Tanmay, you need to write an AI algorithm to write her blogs.
I know. I definitely need to. That's when we go to the clone.
Yeah, exactly.
We're supposed to be working on this, Tanmay. I don't know where this clone is.
Tanmay is an agile developer. He works in iterations. First, he'll write your blogs, then he'll write your paintings and poems, and then ultimately in a few years clone.
All right. Yep, done. Tired.
Awesome.
Agile methodology.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, both of you. It was a short notice. I know where you are. It's already late, and you have to prepare for event tomorrow. And Melissa, multiple events tomorrow. So thank you so much. I look forward to enjoying the event with you tomorrow and enjoying interacting with thousands of other people. So see you tomorrow. And guys, whoever is listening, watching, please join us tomorrow. And see you then. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Bye.